Welcome back. Um, I hope you enjoyed the sessions. We are now going to look back at them, and that's Renee is actually going to do that. I give you the mic. What else is there to say?
Give me the mic. No, welcome back. Welcome back. No, I'm not hoarding the mic. We're just, I think we have to acknowledge that there is now a group of people in the audience who is so relieved. So I can't speak for all the sessions because I wasn't there, but I know that the session I was in, there were great presentations. Time management is always problematic, but everyone just wanted to keep hearing more, and there were a lot of questions. And what I heard from the other sessions, you were doing a great job, so congratulations. You have finished. So now we're going to listen. So because we weren't able to attend to all the sessions, our panelists have done that for us, and they're going to share kind of their main take-home message of the session that they were in, and a general tip based on what they heard during the sessions. And I'm going to ask you to keep it short and sweet, so that maybe we can attend to a question from the audience. And I know that Pascal wants to end with some thoughts towards the future. But Henk, could you tell me a little bit about the session you attended?
I was quite impressed. Perhaps I had the best group. It's certainly possible. Cognition, instruction, very good work. There were several papers. Actually, a majority of the papers was technically in an excellent fashion conducted, and the relationship with theory was also quite good. So I was impressed. And I was the more impressed because I am, in the course of the years, I was involved in several master programs and have seen presentations in Bern, in the Middle East. And I had no high hopes while coming here, despite of the fact that I know the situation. But it was entirely based on all the other experiences. And I was
Lies, right? That was the word. Okay.
Therefore, I was quite surprised. And almost no correlational studies, no descriptive studies, experiments, very well done. Of course, small samples, no pilots, which is a pity because with the number, if you double the number of students involved in a study, the study becomes much better by itself. And of course, what I've seen now is these are interesting pilots, and what you should do if you now see for yourself a career in this field, redo your study with larger numbers and some improvements in the design. That would be great. And I have a small advertisement to make. I'm the editor of a new journal published by Elsevier. It's called Health Professions Education. It's print and open access. Unlike most other journals in medical education, I also publish papers that are technically correct, well done, and that do not show effects, have no significant p-values. And I do this out of principle, because chasing for significance and then only publishing these papers is very bad for science. And since we now have the internet, we can publish as many papers as we want at no extra cost. And it would be very important to have non-significant studies in the literature as well. So if you're interested, look for Health Professions Education. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Did not expect that, no. But the people that were in Henk's group, you heard it. So up the numbers and then publish with Henk, okay? We'll populate your journal for you, Henk. Sorry? That's 28 journals. Yeah, true. Okay, thank you. Kees.
Connecting it back to where we started with the panel session and where I started back in the 80s, coming into a PBL school, which was religiously PBL, questions were, does PBL work, right? And we moved on. And it's not about PBL. It's not about TBL. It's not about any particular education method. What is really important are the underlying learning mechanisms. And I think that within our field, we have discovered many of those underlying mechanisms. And in the session I noted many of them: issues around collaborative learning, issues around elaboration, issues around peer teaching, about co-creation, constructive alignment. Everything was presented in there. And you can then see, based on those fundamental mechanisms, why things work or may not work. And I think this is what we should be after. We should not be asking, does PBL work? But which mechanisms are in operation, and how do they explain why things work or not work? So my take-home message is the underlying mechanisms explain how educational interventions may work or not work. And this applies not only to students, but also to teachers. We had a fantastic study on how teachers learn. And it applies to healthcare professionals. So if you wish to change behaviors of healthcare professionals, like in one study in relation to CME, these principles also apply. And I think that the tip is 4 out of the 5 studies that were presented in my session, we had the best group, were mixed method studies. And I think that Hank published a paper on the different ways of doing research. What was the descriptive research, the justification research, and the clarification research?
We talked about this paper with the first years last week.
Right, so. Okay. We need more clarification research. We need more mixed method studies. That is my tip. And I was also incredibly impressed with the quality of the presentations and the quality of the studies. Very proud that, you know, we went all the way over the world, and including one of our teachers finishing the master's program and doing a fantastic study on tutors in PBL.
Thanks. Thank you for that. So mixed methods is a lot of work. So knowing the limited time that you have, I think someone is very relieved that he was just commended for his work. But mixed method takes a lot of time. And well, I'm always in awe of the amount of time that I see going into these theses. But we see that today, the quality was incredibly high. So thank you, Kees. Charlotte.
Yes, I attended the best group. And that was on workplace-based assessment, my favorite topic. So I was very pleased, very lucky. I think what struck me, it was presentations from around the world, is how difficult it is to imagine that education practice is different in other parts of the world. So one study was, for example, about case presentation skills, oral case presentation skills. I have come across that concept several times in the literature, but I don't know the concept from my country. But it's something that you do in Canada, for example, where you present your case in the morning to the seniors. It was a very interesting study because it, again, like all the other studies in my session, questioned our intuitive assumptions. So it was looking into what goes into it, and then it came out, it's about the assessment culture in Canada that really brings out what goes into it. So I was talking about in the panel session earlier this afternoon about self-centeredness and patient-centeredness. And one of the conclusions was, well, it's more self-centered. I'm being assessed. I want to present. It's not about the patient. So that's very interesting. Also, we heard about EPAs. Again, something a lot of countries are taking up right now. But also, what is it actually about. So 2 of the papers were about that, and I liked very much. One was quantitative and was it feasible? The other one was qualitative about what is trust. And that was interesting because it's definitely not something that you can just look at a person and say, tick, trust. It's something
And it would
that
differ
develops
perhaps also.
over years, and that is really, again, something to make us reflect on EPAs. It's about trust, outcomes, milestones, 7 roles, competences, whatever that is coming to us. It's more like the principles behind, yes, they may be very nice, but all these structures, we need somebody to question what is actually going into that. And this is the crowd going to do that, and you have done a beautiful work in that. Again, we had a study on teamwork skill, and we could see, well, there's more into it than just numbers and tick boxes. So I was very pleased with the presentations. You did a wonderful job, and yeah, it's really good that we have people like you out there now.
Thank you, Charlotte. So to Adina for the final group.
We definitely had the best.
Oh, we had the best group. I was in that session. I can vouch for that. Yeah. Right, Case?
Ooh, ouch. Okay. So my session was titled "Learning in the Workplace," and I think I'm just going to give you a series of themes. One is that in this domain, qualitative methods seem to rule. We only had one mixed method study. The rest were very rigorously done qualitative studies. And it was beautiful to see the importance of describing your methodology so that the audience could trust the findings and how you establish that trust with your readers and your audience. So here are some of the take-home messages. Practice is not independent, it is interdependent. That was a direct quote from our first presenter, which I think set the stage for the rest of the talks. The other thing that my husband actually whispered to me while he was sitting next to me, that research is me-search. That in particularly when using qualitative methodology, you need to surface your own reflexivity. You have to know who you are, and you're often able to admit publicly with great confidence that you're doing this because you're passionate about the work. So I think that was proven over and over. I learned from one of my own master students that doctors are not the normal people. Doctors just are not the normal people. That resilience is not a trait, but a state. I think that's sort of an interesting idea. It came forward from a number of the presentations. We also heard a good amount about the power differential between, in our case, it was mostly residents. We were mostly talking about graduate medical education trainees, residents and faculty, and playing that back and forth across the presentations. You know, what is that power differential? What is the impact of it on the educational process, but also on the research process? Can you really trust your subjects in a qualitative research study to be truly reflect on something where there's such a powerful differential in power? And that question was raised but not answered. Heard a really interesting study on faculty reflections. The thesis was that faculties reflecting on their own professional identity formation actually has a significant impact on trainees' ability to socialize into the profession, which I thought was a very interesting twist on a literature I happen to know fairly well. The idea here was that faculty may exert socialization pressure on residents, and that stories that resonate with residents are a positive socialization factor. And the other take-home point, which I think it deserves repeating, is that role models are often role models because of who they are rather than what they say or do so much in their own sort of formal reflections. So residents were much more trusting, and this is about entrustment as well, of reflections from faculty who they already trusted. So there's a sort of question about chicken and egg there. A couple of more things. One is that catchy titles help a lot. We went from thriving in scrubs to our sea of stories. Can a leopard change its spots? Feedback begins at home. I mean, just endlessly interesting, and drew us in. And I think that actually is not a joke. That's actually very important to present your work as a sort of the title should basically draw everybody into what the most meaningful bit of take-home point is. I have some advice, but you told us, should we do that separately? Just the group? I'm going to give you feedback now. Yeah. Yes, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for these summaries, because I was just thinking we never do this. Actually, we always have parallel sessions, and we never know what's happening in the other sessions. So maybe that's something for future years to do something with. I think there were a couple of very valuable lessons learned today, and I liked hearing you reflect back on what we discussed earlier in the panel. It's all interconnected. I liked coming back to we need clarification work, and whether it's quantitative, qualitative, or mixed, depending on your question, make your decision in methodology. I think there were a couple of people in the room that heard me say that over the last 3 weeks, right? But yeah, there's important work being done, and I'm very proud that you have been doing that under our wings. But the time for that is done because you're flying out, right? You're flying out into the world. But I'm very glad that we were part of your learning process and that you came to Maastricht to do that. And for the second and first years here, see their process, learn from the ones that have gone before you, and we hope to see you in similar positions soon. This was it for me. I'm going to hand the microphone to Pascal to wrap it up for today.
I'll keep this short. Thank you very much, René. Thank you very much also the panel members for being here. Thank you everybody for being here. That's one of the most important things I want to say, actually. To wrap it up a little bit, the only thing today, there's been a lot of wisdom, came from that direction. So I'm not going to add too much to that. I'm not in a stage right now of my career at She to do that, I guess. But the one thing that disturbed me a little bit, that was something that Kay said in the beginning, that was about evidence, so beyond evidence. I'm not sure how exactly you meant that, but I just hope for the future, if there's one thought for the future that I would like to, say, is that I hope that evidence at least keeps on being a basis, for convincing people to, for instance, change an educational system or something else at least. But I said to the Unit 1 students and the Unit 7 students when I opened the academic year of the MHPE, I said, well, if you want to change your educational system, you need a very convincing story, and to help you with that, you can use evidence that's out there in the different journals, and that's, the best basis to convince people. So maybe you have just a little bit to say about that.
Someone said to me, if you want to change a medical school curriculum, it's like moving a graveyard. You won't get a lot of help from within.
Mm-hmm. I understand that. That's a very good metaphor. Okay. So now I guess we know where the challenge lies in the future. Yeah, something like that, raising the dead, yeah, whatever. Okay, so let me end this session with not only thanking you, but also giving you a little present. Maybe someone can assist me with that. Maybe, René, can you assist me a little bit? Dankjewel. Dankjewel. And the last one, you may think the last one, for whom is the last one? The last one is for you. Thank you very much. And last but not least, I would like to thank 3 ladies that actually made this symposium possible. Well, actually, there's a lot of people, involved in that. I think I like to thank Janneke for thinking along and for thinking about ideas to do this session, etc. For me, it was all new, and I was informed by her about things are going normally, and etc. And what we could add to that because of the 25th anniversary. There's also there's Inge Veugen, who also assisted today. There's also Caroline, who had a bit of a little role in this session, but she is also very helpful in the MHPE. And last but not least, and I think really not least, is I would like to thank Tanya, because Tanya did the most work. Really, she almost did everything to organize this session. So, one hand of applause for her.